As we stood there, in the cold silence, we both heard what truly sounded like a man groaning out in pain. As you know, I have heard this same sound many times during the war. Yet, when we turned up the wicks on our lamps, there were no other human beings in the shaft, except Mr. Dunn and myself. I'll admit, I haven't been this frightened since the Battle of Shiloh.
Hello, and welcome to Unknowable, the podcast where we talk about all things mysterious, unusual, or unknowable. I'm Justine.
And I'm Gray. This week, we are back with an episode about the Bloody Pit.
The Bloody Pit.
Also known as the Hoosac Tunnel.
Yeah.
In Western Massachusetts.
Western Massachusetts. Close enough that we could go there.
We could.
I probably wouldn't.
We didn't.
We did not. I thought about it, but...
So, I thought about it as well, but it's still like an active railway tunnel.
Right.
There's like 12 trains a day that go through this.
Not super
So
safe.
it's like not something that I really want to be trapped in a tunnel and have a train coming at me.
No. And
No.
we'd probably need to go at night to like amp the spookiness up, and then
Oh,
we'd
yeah.
probably die.
Nope.
Yeah.
I am all set without that.
All set. So this is our 29th episode,
Yeah.
and our first episode since late July.
Yeah.
We took a little break.
Yep.
Because I had a baby.
Yeah. That's
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah. I got married in that time.
Yeah. Gray got married.
It's been a lot of life changes going on, but
Yeah. It's been insane. So now we're back.
what better time than the month of October to get back into Unknowable?
Exactly. Yeah. This is where Gray was just saying this is like spooky season.
Oh, yeah.
So this is kind of, I mean, most of our topics are kind of spooky,
Right.
but kind of a spooky topic.
Yeah.
And our next episode, episode 30,
Yep.
will be our Halloween episode.
Ooh.
Yeah. Released the day before Halloween.
Yep.
It's going to be awesome. So, yeah, the Bloody Pit. So I first heard about the Bloody Pit on an episode of Lore.
Okay.
I love Lore.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Lore.
Yeah.
Which is way better and more popular than us.
But hey.
Has a TV show now. But yeah, heard about the Bloody Pit and was fascinated that this was just a thing in Massachusetts.
It's such a an intense name for something. And then you see it's just like it's a railway tunnel.
Yeah, it's super basic.
How
It's
scary can a railway tunnel be?
pretty scary.
Turns out pretty damn scary.
Yeah. It's a 4.75 mile active railroad tunnel
Yeah.
in
So it was
Western Mass.
originally built to connect Boston with upstate New York.
Yep.
So there was tons of it's and people who got transported to upstate New York via the Hoosac Tunnel.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a railway tunnel, man.
Yeah. It goes through the Hoosac Range,
Yep.
an extension of Vermont's Green Mountains.
And the Berkshires, I think.
Yeah.
The Western Mass.
It's like all this backstory is kind of boring.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's-
it connects Florida, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
which is weird.
I was real confused reading about it because I just was skimming over and I saw Florida and I was like, wait, what?
Wait a second.
I thought it was like a 5-mile tunnel.
No, yeah.
How does
Florida,
this work? But
Massachusetts.
Florida, Massachusetts, which I did not know existed until today.
What a weird place that must be to grow up. Where are you from? Florida? Like the state or the town?
The two worst places in one. Florida, Massachusetts. No offense to anybody
Yeah.
who lives in Massachusetts. I'm sure there are nice parts of
Florida.
it.
Oh yeah, there's beautiful parts.
Salem's really nice.
Yeah, Salem.
Marblehead's really nice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Western Massachusetts. So I mean,
Western Mass.
the other terminus of the Hoosac Tunnel is North Adams, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
where there's the giant contemporary art museum,
True.
which
True.
is
Pretty nice.
a world-class art museum.
Yeah. Not so bad.
So
Yeah.
there's good stuff there.
It's good stuff. Yeah. The pit began construction in 1851.
Yep.
This is way back.
Oh yeah.
And this was like a 24-year long project.
Yeah, you got to remember, digging a tunnel through a mountain. Nowadays, you just have this boring machine that just drills through straight.
Yeah.
But back in the day, this was pre-TNT when they started it.
I think so.
Because they made reference to it, them bringing nitroglycerin in at some point. So it's they were just digging this with pickaxes.
It's intense.
That's awful.
Yeah. Which kind of starts explaining why this was such a tragic
Oh yeah.
thing.
There's just so many people died in the construction of this tunnel.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised more people didn't die.
Right.
Just based on
it seems like a lot, but
yeah.
yeah. So this 24 years at the completion, this was the world's second longest tunnel.
It's crazy.
Which is like really a 5-mile tunnel doesn't seem that long to me, but I guess it is.
Yeah.
And it was the longest tunnel in North America until 1916. So that was a good 30, 40 years.
Yeah. It's not too shabby.
Yeah. So during the 24 years this was being constructed, 196 people died.
Jesus.
Like almost 200 people.
Yeah. Just
died.
To dig a tunnel.
Yeah. Leading the survivors of the construction were the people who dubbed it the Bloody Pit.
Yeah. The survivors.
Which, yeah. The survivors, yeah. Like people who didn't die are the survivors.
Right.
So yeah, many people died in explosions, most by black powder, but others by the more powerful but less stable nitroglycerin.
Yeah. So
Scary
like shit. I get the impression there wasn't like a ton of like mysterious or unusual, like pretty like, okay, you're underground.
Yeah.
Letting off explosives that are like various levels of stable.
Yep.
And like, yeah, there's nothing mysterious about why these people died. We know exactly why they died.
Yeah, that's not the unknowable part.
Practices.
Yeah, they died because they were doing something real dangerous.
Yeah, I'm sure that there was like 11-year-olds like smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
Breaking rocks. Hauling nitroglycerin.
Yeah.
I'm 100% positive.
Oh yeah, this was the 1800s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's two particular very notable deaths.
Yeah.
Or I should say notable incidents that caused deaths.
Right.
Do you want to tell the one about the 3 workers?
Yeah. So there was these 3 dudes.
3 dudes.
I don't remember their names.
I have their names. Ned Brinkman, Billy Nash, and Ringo Kelly.
Ringo Kelly.
Yeah.
Was Ringo the one who...
Yeah, Ringo was the bad guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these 3 dudes, they have like some nitroglycerin or some TNT or something, and they're going to set a charge, and then, they're all going to go back to a safe distance and then let it off and then clear out the debris. So the one guy, Ringo, he's hanging back at the... I'm imagining in my head one of those like Roadrunner like T-shaped handle things to like blow up the TNT.
Yep.
So Ringo's hanging back at like the detonation point, and then the 2 other guys are going to like set the charge. And so obviously the plan is like you guys go set the charge, and then you'll walk back to this like safe distance, and then we'll let off the charge.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't want to kill 2 people.
Right.
But Ringo decided when they were setting the charge to set off the charge.
Yeah.
So he basically just blew these 2 dudes up.
Blew them up.
And
dead in pieces.
Dead in pieces. That must have been grisly.
Yeah, it must have been bad.
Imagine. Plus you're in like a tunnel, so it's like just
what does that smell like?
What does that smell like? Like where does like all that blood and guts like has to go somewhere? So it's all just gonna go.
Is Ringo like covered in blood and guts?
No, but he would have had to have been far enough away that he didn't get killed by the explosion.
Oh, damn.
It's weird. So so we don't know what was going through Ringo's head. Could have been an accident.
Sure.
Nitroglycerin, you can sneeze and let it off. So it's like, it's possible it was an accident.
But we don't think it was an accident.
No.
Well,
from everything I can tell.
They didn't think it was an accident.
Right. So I'm not clear on how much time passes between these 2 events, but after Ringo kills these 2 guys, he is eventually found dead in the tunnel some weeks or months later.
Yep.
And he has been strangled to death.
Yep.
And his body was found at roughly the same spot in the tunnel where he killed these 2 people weeks or months previously.
Exactly.
And all the workers were like, nah, dude, that was totally the spirits of those 2 guys that he killed. 100%.
Yeah. They exacted revenge.
No doubt.
Yeah. From my notes, it was like a year.
A year?
Okay. And apparently the other workers suspected that it was like not an accident. Ooh. And then he like quit and disappeared. And they were like, okay, yeah, for sure not an accident. Because like, why would you disappear? And then, they found him a year later.
Shit, okay. So he had already been gone, and like, why would he be back at the tunnel?
Exactly, yeah. He had been gone for a year.
That's wild.
And yeah, and this spot in the tunnel was apparently like 2 miles in. So this wasn't like right at the entrance.
Oh yeah, 2 miles. That's that's a decent time walking.
Yeah. So at the very least, like some other worker probably killed him.
Right.
But probably the spirits.
Right. Yeah. Lured him in there and then strangled him.
Yeah.
Would have been like that scene in Star Wars there where Darth Vader or whatever strangling somebody with the Force.
Wow. Gray has never even seen Star Wars.
Nope.
He's just referencing Star Wars here.
It took every ounce of my body not to say Star Trek.
Wow.
So.
But it would be like that.
It would probably be like that.
Yeah, because he's strangling him with the Force, and so he's like across the room, and he's like sliding up the wall because he's being strangled.
Yeah, but this guy would have just been in the dark ass tunnel by himself.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming at that point it was still under construction.
Right. Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Because this was 1865.
Yeah.
And it was like 10 years later when it was completed. So this was like during the construction.
That's crazy. So you're like in a dark cave.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's all I can think is that when you're down there, it's just like pitch black.
Oh yeah.
Unless you're, with people who have unless you have a lamp.
Right.
You're in the pitch black darkness.
Right. That's going to factor into this next story of tragedy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. By the way, Star Wars, you really should watch it. Darth Vader has a very dark backstory.
Look, I don't have any nostalgia for it.
If you see all the movies, you you really feel for Darth Vader.
I am sure I would.
You don't even know who in the movie ends up being Darth Vader. You're all in the dark.
It's Anakin Skywalker or something.
Wow.
Spoiler alert.
Wow.
I know enough. I have absorbed enough of Star Wars and Star Trek from cultural osmosis that I feel like I've seen it.
Although, yeah, if you watch the first few movies, you see how much of a dick Anakin was. Yeah.
Also, I can't stand all of those scene transitions where it's a wipe and a star and it's just too corny, man.
There are a few of those.
Yeah.
They're great movies though.
So
I swear. Anyways. So among the deadliest of incidents was the referred to as a central shaft incident.
This is rough.
It's really rough. This was October 17th, 1967. Wow, 1867.
I was going to say it's a little late.
Okay. 1867. So this was only 2 years after, a year after they found that dude strangled.
Right.
There were workers digging the tunnel's a little over 1,000-foot vertical exhaust shaft. So, again, shaft for all the exhaust from the trains and everything to come up.
Right. So I'm assuming every I don't know, however many miles, you'd have to stop and then go up vertically to have a vent.
I would think so,
to get fresh air that deep in there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming for the digging, but also, once the trains are operating, to have a place for all the smoke to billow out of.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was one of those shafts. A candle in the hoist building ignited some naphtha fumes that had leaked from a lamp. And then the explosion set the hoist on fire. So this was the hoist to get supplies and people down into the shaft.
Right.
The hoist collapsed. So it's raining equipment and supplies and sharp drill bits down onto these 13 workers down at the bottom of the shaft.
Jesus.
And so there were 4 men near the top that escaped, but the 13 working 500 plus feet below were trapped by all of these pieces of iron and shit falling on them. And the pumps were destroyed, and so the shaft begins filling with water.
I always forget that when you're digging any kind of mine or whatever, anything, you have to pump water out. The groundwater is going to fill that hole.
Exactly. Yeah. So that just busted. Water's filling up. A worker named Thomas Mallory was lowered into the shaft. The next day, they lowered him down by rope, and he was so overcome by fumes, and just overwhelmed. He was so worried about going into the shaft that he apparently made up his will before he was lowered down. He was certain that he was going to die.
That's wild.
But he was just overcome, and so he was nope, there's nobody. And so they didn't attempt any other rescue. And several months later, when they reached the bottom of the shaft, they found that several victims had survived long enough to fashion a raft before they suffocated.
So let's unpack that a little bit, okay?
So much.
So you're just doing so already life sucks. You're a miner.
Yeah, you're a miner digging a tunnel.
Is terrible.
Yeah.
You're just in dark, cramped conditions, no air. You're probably disgusting, not showering.
Yeah.
It probably smells awful down there. It's pitch black. So already life starts shitty.
So shitty.
Then some giant explosion happens, and all of a sudden all this heavy machinery and rocks are raining down on you.
Yeah.
And by the grace of whoever you happen, or maybe not the grace of whoever,
you
are unlucky enough to survive all of this. So maybe your arm is broken. Maybe your leg is broken. Maybe you're deaf because of the explosion.
Yeah.
Maybe you're bloody. There's people screaming. It probably smells terrible down there. There's no fresh oxygen. And it's I can't even fathom how pitch black it must be. And then you start to hear the trickle of water.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're in the complete darkness and you start filling up with water. And it's wow, okay. And yet you have the presence of mind to feel around you and feel okay, this feels like wood, and somehow build a raft in the pitch black when you may or may not be deaf with broken arms, and that's awful.
And then
that is a
you
terrible
suffocate
way to
and
go.
die.
Yeah, you're
because
just waiting.
Nobody
you're just
comes to
on.
find you.
You're there long enough to build a raft, and you're just holding on. Maybe if I just last a couple more hours, they're coming for me.
They're coming.
But
they know we're down here, but no.
No.
Thomas Mallory fucked them.
What an ass.
What an ass. And it's like, you have no idea, like, was he just so overwhelmed by the state of things down there that he just didn't even look?
Right.
Like, why did he report that there was nobody? He didn't. Clearly there were.
You're right.
Yeah, so they were just trapped. Totally
Suffocated
trapped.
to death.
Sucks, man.
So then, over as they, like they didn't try to rescue anybody, but I get the impression that they just kind of continued digging at like the normal rate that they were doing it.
Right,
They had to clear
continued
all
working.
of that.
Yep.
And as they're clearing it out, like as the water's filling up the tunnel, people's bodies kept floating up to the surface, and they'd be like masticating, like as in like rotting under the water. So that must have been horrifyingly disgusting and also smelled awful.
Oh yeah. Well, you got to figure, like, there were 13 people down there, and it says that several victims had survived to build this raft, but that doesn't mean all 13.
Right.
So they probably were, like, on top of you being terrified down there and like trying to survive, and maybe in the pitch black, there probably were a good number of them that died in that explosion. So you're down there with bodies. Yeah. And who knows? And there's really no, I mean, they found these people months later, so there's no telling how long they were alive down there for.
You can go like, what, a week without water?
Yeah.
Well, no, they had water.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
they had plenty of water.
They had human bodies there, so they potentially could have eaten some of their comrades.
Yeah. So they could have been alive for a while.
Like weeks.
Fuck. I don't know how long it would take you to suffocate in there.
Right.
So
that's
there's
probably
no
what did it.
Yeah.
Lack of oxygen.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Ugh. Yeah.
So while like the bodies were still missing, because like they basically were clearing it, and so they were burying bodies as they either floated up to the surface or they found them. And while this was all happening, workers in the camp, and as well as I think people in the town that were nearby or something, were seeing like ghostly apparitions.
Oh, yeah.
And like hearing voices, and like there was like the presence of spirits around.
Yeah.
Until they found the last missing miner's body and buried it.
Yep.
Supposedly once it was given a proper burial, then all of like the apparitions and stuff stopped, and people stopped seeing stuff for a while. Yeah. Or like calmed down for a while at least.
For a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. So all these lives lost, some of the workers believed that the tunnel had a curse on it. There were a lot of workers that just walked off the job, either from believing this curse or from seeing or hearing shit. Yeah. There were stories of unexplained lights, strange mournful sounds. This was as early as 1866, so like a year after that first explosion.
Yeah, so the tunnel's not even done yet.
No, it's not even done. It's like years from being done. So yeah, that quote that was in the cold open, that was a cavalry officer who had been called to investigate because they were hearing these like moaning, sounds of men in pain. Right. So he went in to investigate, and as the quote said he hadn't been that scared since the Battle of Shiloh. Right. One of the battles of the Civil War. So again, we've talked about this before, where this is like a man in the military.
They call him a trained observer.
Yeah, a trained observer who has like seen some shit, heard some shit, and he was terrified in this tunnel. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, before all their bodies were found, there were vague shapes and wails near the pit, which like, saw apparitions of the lost miners carrying picks and shovels through the mist and the snow on the mountains, leaving no footprints. Yeah. And yeah, after they were recovered, apparitions disappeared, but they kept hearing these moans. Yeah. Which you think about it, like, it's kind of split between like, were these spirits all moaning, or like all these people dying in this tunnel? Right. Like, how do we know that some of these moans weren't real people? Like
currently dying.
Currently dying, yeah. Like, especially while they hadn't found the bodies of all those people that were in the explosion. Like, how do we know that some of those moans weren't from the actual survivors? Right.
Oh, that would be rough.
Yeah. Like, people, I don't know which is worse.
Like, they heard you like wailing in this like walled off part of the thing. You're just like starving to death slowly in the pitch black, and people are like, it's a ghost. It's like,
yeah, that's weird, man. There's like
not dead yet.
Freaky apparitions. But yeah, you can't explain the apparitions. Right. Seeing these apparitions outside of the tunnel, clearly these men were trapped inside this tunnel. So there's no way that you're seeing them out in the snow. So yeah.
And not leaving footprints. It wasn't just like rando miners walking around.
Yeah. So in 1874, again, this was about a year before it was completed, a hunter named Frank Webster vanished near the tunnel. A search party found him 3 days later in a state of shock. He said strange voices ordered him into the tunnel, where ghostly figures wandered around and invisible hands took his hunting rifle and beat him with it.
And they like said he had like bruises and scrapes and stuff. Like he was definitely beaten.
Yeah, he had been beaten, and the idea that he was like in the woods hunting and like these voices just called him over.
Right.
Like what? That has to be like, we've talked a little bit about like some of the mind control with some certain like beings that I can't, like there's nothing that I would hear in like my correct state of mind that would make me go into that tunnel.
It reminds me of the episode we did about the Men in Black, where people would give them information or like let them into their home or do things against their better judgment. And they're in the moment, they're thinking like, why am I doing this? But they're still doing it. They're still like complying with whatever.
Just like the black-eyed children too.
Right. Oh, and the black-eyed children.
Yeah, where you're like, and like you're wanting to resist, but like you can't.
You physically cannot.
Yeah.
And that is very well what could have happened to Ringo too, to like lure him back into the tunnel.
Shit, I didn't
Something
even think about
could have like brought him in that same way, and the hunter Webster, he just survived,
right?
Because they didn't have a specific beef with him.
True. Yeah, he was just some dude.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, there's even as recently as 1974, there was a man who set out to walk the length of the tunnel, and he was never heard from again.
Jesus.
Which, when you think about it, like the tunnel isn't that long. It's not like it's so long that you could like
5 miles. You could walk 5 miles in a day.
Yeah, you could easily like you could walk 5 miles in like a couple hours.
Yeah.
So that reminds me. I don't know if you've seen the movie. What is it called? Damn. Grave Encounters. It's a movie where it's supposed to be like, it's essentially a group of ghost hunters that are like ghost adventures, and totally like what you'd think the behind the scenes of a ghost hunter show is, where like the dude is clearly just doing everything for ratings and for money. He doesn't actually believe any of that stuff.
Right.
And they go to, just like they always do in those shows, like to an old mental asylum and get locked in. Like it's exactly Ghost Adventures.
Like based on Ghost Adventures.
It's clearly based on Ghost Adventures. And they get locked in. They're doing like an overnight thing. And spoiler alert, but the movie ends with him trapped in the underground tunnels of this asylum.
Oof.
So that's like what I think of when I think of being in this tunnel, is that you're just in like a pitch black tunnel that's 5 miles isn't long really, but if you were trapped in there and you didn't know where you were, 5 miles is a long ass way.
Yeah. Or like that movie Session 9.
Yes.
Where he's in the tunnels underneath tunnels underneath the mental asylum. And then like all the lights start turning off.
Yep.
Coming towards him, and he's just running, trying to keep in the light.
It's still like one of the scariest scenes in that movie.
Oh yeah. You could not pay me enough to walk a tunnel.
No.
Like the Hoosac Tunnel.
God, no.
I would not do that. I mean, on one hand, because it's an active railway tunnel, because I don't want to die by being hit by a train. That seems like it would be terrible.
Yeah, it'd be shitty.
But also just because like so say you're 2.5 miles in.
Yeah.
You can't turn around. You have to. Either way, you're going 2.5 miles.
Yeah, you're going the same distance.
So, fuck that.
No, yeah, 5 miles is a decent. Yeah, and that's in Grave Encounters.
Right.
It's like he's just in there in the dark, and it's like you're seeing him in night vision. And in that particular movie, that movie will like fuck you up. You need to watch it. Like I've seen that movie multiple times, and it still fucks me up. Yeah. It's just when they're in the asylum, and it's like the place keeps changing on them.
Oh yeah.
Like they keep going to the front door where like they remember the front door being, and it's not the front door anymore. Oof. Or it's closed off. Yep. And they just can't find where they're supposed to go. Like again, that's the idea that I get, is that you'd be in this place and you'd think like, oh, I'll just go back. Like I only, 10 minutes I got to where I'm standing right now. I'll just turn around in 10 minutes back, and then you'll just keep walking and walking and walking. Like it'll never end.
Yeah. And like once you get
no way out.
Once you get far enough in the tunnel that you can't see the entrance anymore, then it's basically like it's like there's no landmarks.
Right.
It's just a straight tunnel that goes on what feels like forever, I bet.
Yeah.
So it's like you have no context. You don't know how long you've been walking, how far you've walked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
No, I in my research, I came across a blog of somebody who had gone to the tunnel, and he had like a picture like right in the entrance of the tunnel. He did say that as soon as he walked into the tunnel, his camera started taking photos by itself. Oof. Though he said that his camera had done that before, but he said it was like weird timing, that it was like the second he stepped in, it was like taking photos by itself.
Nope.
But he had a picture from like just in the entrance, and like the blog post ended with just like, that's about as far as I made it. And I was like, that seems about right.
That sounds about right.
That's like about what I would say too. It's like, oh, I like took a picture in the entrance and bye. Because so the unknowable part of this topic is, of course, is this tunnel haunted? Right. In my mind, there's like no way it's not.
Oh yeah.
I
there's like a few stories of people, like tons of stories of people hearing disembodied voices or seeing like weird dark apparitions, or even seeing like people who are in like period like minor outfits or like work outfits or whatever. And there's even a couple like friendly spirits who have like saved lives.
Interesting.
So I read actually this one guy, he was in the tunnel. I don't remember all of the context of it, but he was like in the tunnel and he heard a voice call out his name and say like watch out or something, and like a train was coming, and so he jumped out of the way and it saved his life.
Damn.
And then like a little bit later, he was using a crowbar to try, like the train had frozen to like the tracks or something, so he was using a crowbar to kind of pry it. Jesus. And then a voice yelled like his name and said like drop the crowbar or something, and he let go of it, and right when he let go of it, the crowbar shot away and like hit the wall because of like electricity.
Oh shit.
So like a live wire had fallen and would have electrocuted him if he hadn't let go of it.
Damn.
So he was he believed that like something was trying to save his life there.
Oh wow.
So he like every year he made a pilgrimage to the tunnel.
Whoa.
Because he felt like if he didn't make a pilgrimage, then something bad would happen.
Damn.
And then the one year he didn't do it, his wife died.
No.
So
that's terrible.
That's the Hoosac Tunnel.
Oh my God.
So it's like that's an interesting thing. Like that's almost like a positive,
right?
Like, or like a helpful spirit,
which seems unlikely.
It's interesting because like if it was just wails, like as in like screaming, that could just be like a residual, almost like an echo. Mm-hmm. But like there's a lot of like interaction, and like that is a very like involved, not poltergeist, but like a ghost that is interacting with its surroundings.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole different like mindset, or a whole different like concept, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't know actually if we've talked about it on the podcast before. I think we probably have. But about your thought about spirits and like speaking and wailing and all that stuff being kind of that energy being trapped in a place, especially, I mean, there's a reason why on ghost adventure shows they go to places where there's historically been a lot of death.
Right.
And a lot of pain and a lot of like tragic death, not even just, I don't think even like a regular hospital is the right type of place for that type of energy, because that's like people dying in all kinds of circumstances, some peaceful, accidental, some peaceful, some of old age, whatever. But the reason that they go to like mental asylums, like prisons and things like that, is because there's a lot of people that have been mistreated and died violent deaths in these spaces. And so it's much more likely, I think, that your energy is going to get trapped in that place where you died if it was like a sudden violent death versus just like, I passed away in my sleep.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure there are still ghosts and spirits that come from deaths like that, but I think it's more common for there to be like a high number of that in a place like this tunnel where there's 200 people dying in 25 years. Right.
Like somebody who's like dying like in the pitch black with the water filling up, suffocating to death. Like that's a very like your fight or flight instincts are really kicked in. So you're expending a lot of energy in that moment trying to stay alive. Ugh. And the way I think about it is like, energy is a wave, much like sound is. So you can trap sound using like acoustics. Like certain places have good acoustics and certain places have bad acoustics. So if you think about it in terms of like some places have good like energy acoustics and some places have bad ones, the places that have the good energy acoustics sort of like trap that energy and it reverberates around in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So a place like a tunnel where it's like, solid rock all around it is a perfect candidate for somewhere that would trap that energy and there'd be no way for it to dissipate.
Yeah.
So I think what a lot of people are hearing are like the wails or the screaming of people dying in their dying moments, expending all that energy trying to stay alive because they're dying under tragic circumstances.
Yeah.
So it's like that explains, I feel like, a lot of the more like, I don't know, like standard ghosts or like the standard like noises or whatever.
Yeah.
Even like the apparitions, if you just see like an apparition of like a miner walking down the tunnel, like that could just be like, like as they were dying, like that was what they were thinking in their head because that's what just happened. So it's almost just like replaying, like pressing play on a recording.
Yeah.
But then what's harder to understand is like the ones where it's more like an interaction or it's like intelligently responding to the situation that's happening.
Right.
That I don't understand.
No, and I think that partly feels surprising to me because, again, like you would think that most of the people that died there, nobody was dying like a pleasant welcome death. I mean, not that any death is really welcome, but like it's different to die 85 years old in your bed versus dying in the middle of constructing a tunnel.
Right.
So just the fact that all these people died like before their time, and potentially in violent ways, they were exploded,
right?
Or something fell on them and they died very suddenly,
crushed to death.
But maybe, I mean, I would think that like the spirits of those dudes that got blown up and even the people trapped in the tunnel would maybe be a little different than like maybe if there was somebody that was like truly an accident and just an unfortunate thing, like maybe they would, maybe that depends on like what you were like in your life before you died.
Right.
If you like recognize like, wow, that was like truly an accident. Nobody fucked up to make me die. Nobody killed me.
It'd be more
and
like
they're just like, oh, I don't want this to happen to somebody else.
Right.
So they're like there to help. But it's like what makes that spirit different?
Right.
Then.
And is it actually like, is it intelligently responding to like external stimuli?
Right.
Or is it just coincidence? Like, is it just replaying, pressing play on a recording and we're ascribing, like, what if, because like if the person, I don't remember what that person's name was, but supposedly it was like Joe, watch out. And what if it actually said like, go, watch out, and he was just like hearing his name.
Right.
Like.
Yeah. What if somebody in the tunnel died that same way and it was just like something about that moment like triggered that to replay or something? Almost
like there's like, if there was like a threshold of energy that the echo needs in order to like become like actually like vocally play, you know what I mean? There's like a threshold of energy it needs. Maybe like if you are a living human expending energy in that same situation, it puts that energy threshold above that level, and then it essentially like plays the recording.
Right. Yeah. Triggers the recording.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's when we've talked about that before yet with in so many of these ghost hunting shows, especially when they get like the EVPs, the recordings, it's often not necessarily the spirit like responding to a question. Like they're not like, hey, what's your name? And they're like, oh, just answering every question. It's like a lot of times they're just saying a random, seemingly random name or a word or a phrase or something, which same idea. Like that could just be something that was important to them or like the last thing they said or whatever, like something that was on their mind and it's just stuck, like you said, like bouncing around.
Yeah.
And then the energy of the people in here and sometimes like the equipment that they're using, like the actual like electricity of the equipment is energy enough that it can like use that to power itself, essentially.
Amplify it. Yeah.
Oh, so creepy.
Or to play devil's advocate, it's all just pareidolia.
Yeah.
Our brains recognizing patterns and things that aren't really there.
Right.
It's a tunnel, has weird acoustics, like actual sound acoustics.
Yeah.
So say someone's talking on the other end of the tunnel and it just reverberates in a weird way.
Yeah. Could hear something weird.
I think there's something going on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I really do think, like, again, just the sheer number of deaths. And that's, like, part of the reason I don't really... I mean, I know there are, like, some cemeteries that can be haunted, but, like, if we just believed that, like, every place that had a lot of death in it was haunted, then, like, every single cemetery would be haunted.
Right.
But, again, I think the circumstances under which those people died varying so much that it just doesn't end up that way.
Like nobody dies in a cemetery and then gets buried in the cemetery.
Right.
So it's not like they're expending the energy of their death. They're expending the energy of their death somewhere else.
True.
So that's why I find cemeteries to be peaceful. Yeah. Because I don't think that there is a lot of like, not a lot of people die in cemeteries. No. So there's not that energy reverberating around. Plus it's outdoors. Yeah. So there's less buildings for it to get sort of like trapped in or whatever.
Right.
So
that's why like the mausoleums are more creepy to me.
Right.
Like being trapped in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a cemetery nearby that like we hang out in all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Not I shouldn't say hang out. We're not just like drinking in there, but we go for walks and whatever.
Drinking 40s in the cemetery.
Yeah. I do think it's fucked up when people just hang out in cemeteries like that.
Yeah.
Like go and drink or like have sex in a cemetery. Like what the fuck?
I don't understand.
But
kids
it is
these
really
days.
Peaceful. Like I never feel weird in that cemetery.
No.
I don't ever feel like there's weird energy or there was one time that like my camera wouldn't work. I was trying to take a picture of a certain tombstone.
Ooh.
And I had a battery in the camera and it like I went to take the photo and like the camera just shut off. Like the battery just died. And I was like, that was really weird. And then I had a second battery with me. So I was like, okay, like I'll just pop, like there's no way that'll happen twice. And it did.
Ooh.
I put the new battery in, which like there's no way that they were both. And it wasn't even like, if the battery's dead, you put it in the camera and the camera won't even turn on.
Oh yeah.
So it was like I put the battery in, turned the camera on, it was fine. Said full battery, went to take the photo, shut right off.
Oof.
And I was like, somebody doesn't want me to take this photo.
Yep.
They weren't angry about it. They weren't like mean, but they were just like, nope.
What tombstone it was?
No. I remember like the vague area that I was in, but I don't remember the exact tombstone.
You should have remembered.
I know. I really should have
looked that person up.
But yeah, so that's the Bloody Pit.
Yeah, Hoosick Tunnel, Western Massachusetts.
Which again, part of me wants to go.
Go to Florida, Massachusetts, and see what's up.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I posted a picture today on Instagram and posted it to Facebook.
Yeah.
Saying like, here's your hint. And like a couple people actually got it.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, it looks like the Hoosac Tunnel. It's like, what?
Yeah, right.
Maybe, because we live in New England, people just know.
Exactly.
But I was surprised. It was just a generic picture of like the entrance to a tunnel.
Right.
With just, the year above it. But
I guess it's iconic enough that people recognized it.
Apparently. Literally had never heard of it until that episode.
Right. Me neither.
But yeah. So.
It's crazy.
Episode 29.
Episode 29, the Hoosick Tunnel.
Hoosick Tunnel. So stay tuned. 2 weeks from now.
Yes.
October 30th.
We are getting back on a regular release schedule.
Yeah. Every 2 weeks now. We need a little more time.
Mm-hmm.
Got a baby at home.
Yep.
Shit's crazy.
Exactly. Shit's crazy.
But we're back in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be awesome. So stay tuned for the Halloween episode. We still don't know the topic.
Nope.
So can't even give you a hint.
So if you want to add us and let us know what we should do for our Halloween topic, please let us know.
Yeah,
we're still
let us
trying to
know.
figure it out.
ASAP.
Yeah.
And yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah. Go on to find us on Instagram at unknowablepodcast.
Yep. Find us on Facebook.
Yep. Find us on whatever podcast service you listen to.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating.
Yep.
Yeah.
And check us out on Patreon.
Oh yeah, become a patron on Patreon.
Yeah, do that.
It's crazy.
All right.
This has been Unknowable.
Unknowable. Love you.